Hi everyone. I'm just going to adjust my camera. Oh, just one second. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Hello. It's good to see you. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to see if I have my adjuster for my lights, and here they are. Okay, great. All right. So just I had my camera over at my other the other place where I make videos. So I'm just kind of getting it back, and I'm sorry about that. It's so good to see you. This is Shannon Port. Welcome to the Goddess Report. I can't believe I just had to leave the set at the very beginning of the video, but it's so good to see you, especially for the Venus codes of all things. Venus does represent grace and harmony, and all right, it's so good to see you. I'm so excited about this podcast. This is the Goddess Report. And today we're meeting on Fridays. We meet every Friday. We've been meeting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm thinking about I'm thinking about meeting a little bit earlier. I was looking at the older videos. We used to meet at noon Eastern Standard Time, which was 5 and 6 in Europe, and 9 a.m. in LA. And if you like that time, please let me know, because I'm just kind of we'll be meeting on Fridays, but I'm just looking at the times that people like. And so we are going to um we're going to talk about Venus in the month of March, because I when I was looking at everything, when I saw what Venus is doing in March, I was like, wow. And Venus is such a centerpiece of divine feminine astrology, but her going through Aries is really, really significant. She's in Aries now today, I believe, at 5 degrees, and I have all the degrees that she'll be crossing over and mating with other archetypes and other planets. And so there's so much initiation and revelation in looking at this right now. Um, there's a few things I want to say. So today is the 1 year anniversary of Ukraine. It was 1 year ago today that we had the invasion of Ukraine. And it was on the 22nd of February that we did the last video here, where we did the divine feminine reset. That title was given to me, and I had received it a couple months before we actually did that video. And it was kind of before everybody started talking about the reset and the great reset, because it's so commonly known. At the time, I had actually purchased that book and read it, and I was just shown, well, we're doing the divine feminine reset. And so we did that video. It was the Pluto return, the US Pluto return, and it was 222 2022. If you remember that portal, it was February 22nd, 2022. And that's when we did the divine feminine reset. Within hours of that, I mean, it was under 48 hours, the entire planet changed. And so the reason I'm talking about this is because it has to do with everything we'll be talking about today. So because we're going to be working with Aries a lot. So at that time, I pulled back. I was just shown in deep meditation. It was kind of like when I started the Goddess Report right after the pandemic started. It was a knowing that I had to pull back, and because things were going to be so scrambled. And those couple months after, it was like the second phase of the reset. The first part was COVID, and then we had the invasion of Ukraine. And I mentioned that I was shown it kind of ripped a tear in the auric field of the planet. And it was at that time I started watching global news, a lot of it. I started watching news in India, in some of the Eastern European countries, in some of the I think I found some Japanese news, and I started looking around a lot of European news. I started getting a different picture of what was going on, and also understanding the narrative around the world, which is very different than if you just tune into the news here. I'm in the United States. And then I realized that some censorship started. And it was just such a wild time because I just going into a deep meditation was able to kind of observe what was happening and then tune in to different streams about what was happening. And I just knew that it was going to be really, really, really big, and that I didn't want to, until I could really speak to it properly and with knowing and being fully connected and not swayed into, it's what I did actually, what happened was I learned how conspiracies are made. It was such a valuable time because pulling back and watching all the streams, tuning into different news, tuning in spiritually on a very, very deep level, I got to see the power of the word and how we project archetypes onto the screen of consciousness, and then also got to really look at the human condition and the patriarchy, the planet we live on. And so this is why we're getting into Venus. That I started really looking at the patriarchal inversion and what war really is, and what the war machine really is, what the military industrial complex really is, what militarism really is, and how it is such it is huge. It is we realize that, but we don't necessarily understand how that is the whole frequency of our planet because it controls everything. And so we're going to be looking at the Venus codes for March 2023. Venus codes is something we do in Divine Feminine Astrology. We're looking for March, and we're going to look at Venus going through Aries. She's in Aries now. Is the divine feminine and the heart energy being drenched in that? Aries is the sign of war. It's also the sign of the warrior and the warrioress. Aries is the sign of am. I am. And so we'll be using Venus. I actually, just a little to disclose here, I have Venus in Aries. Venus in Aries is in her detriment. That means it's very hard for her to express herself um, when she's in the sign because the energy is warlike, and so she has to be initiated into it, and that's what we're going to be speaking to today. My Venus is at 15 degrees, and there was a time when Uranus was in Aries squaring Pluto in Capricorn, and it went on and on and on. That was a few years back, and so my Venus really got initiated during that time, and it was brutal. Venus will be squaring Pluto soon, so we're going to be talking about that. I'm so sorry about my camera and adjusting it. It's really bright in here. Happily, it's a very sunny day, a sunny Friday, and so I just wanted to make sure everything was set up okay. Okay, so I'm going to take a peek down and say hi, and then we're going to get into it. We're going to look at. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I have some really powerful things that came in, but we're going to look at Venus conjunct these planets. She's going to conjunct Vesta, Jupiter, Chiron, the wounded healer. This is all like boom, boom, boom. And then she'll conjunct Juno and Eris, the goddess of disruption and justice. And Juno also is the goddess of justice, justice for the feminine, and fairness in and integrity in love relationships. There's so much here. Oh, there's so much here. Then she's going to enter Taurus, square Pluto, conjunct the North Node, the dragon's head, and then conjunct Uranus in Taurus. All of this is going to be happening preliminary to the North Node from Taurus into Aries. So we have a lot coming because the North Node, which is our kind of our collective destiny, the direction we're headed, is moving into the sign of war. And really, to just take a moment to speak to that, I'll slow down for a moment. Really, what is taking place right now, there are so many layers to understanding what's happening right now. So many layers. We have our emotional body, and that's Venus carries a lot of the emotional body, processes things through the law of suggestion. And whatever correspondences or archetypes our emotions attach to, we give all our energy to that at any given time. So some people at some time might think about patriotism as standing up and warlike, and it might bring in really good feelings and good vibes of being true to our country and fighting for what is right and just and democracy and all that. And that can stimulate the side of us that really gets on board with it and believes in that. And there's a time for believing in that, for sure. There's also the emotions around war that have to do with losing lives, and the emotions and the displacement and the destruction and the corruption and the deception that often take place around. Huge, that is so big. And when we attach to that emotion around war, we're deeply saddened, depressed, and know that this is wrong. This is not something we as human beings, spiritual beings, should be allowing to dominate our whole planet. So and then there's reason. And oh my God, Aries is reason as well, because Aries is also the sun in the mind, which connects to super consciousness and pure vision. Aries, in its highest frequency, is the power to see through the light of the sun and know what is true. It's the true power of the emperor, and it's the true power of the noble masculine. If you knew the Art of the Feminine podcast, one of the first podcasts I did was about the return of the noble masculine. So this Aries energy with Venus coming through, there is a noble side to the warrior and the warrioress. And there's a noble time for war. And there's a noble, especially in 3D, because 3D is so imperfect. And 3D is about survival a lot of the time. It really is. There's a time we have to stand up. I think I talked about that in the last video. There's a time when we have to stand up for what's right, because in this dimension, we get pushed around, we get betrayed, we get stolen from, we get used, we get exploited in love relationships and even by those who we love. And so Aries teaches Venus while she's in it, initiates her into being able to be powerful. That's what we call the solar feminine. This is one ray of the solar feminine, Venus and Aries. So, okay, I'm going to take a peek down and say hi, and then we'll look right at the planets, talk about them, and then I have 2 pages of a pretty powerful write up. And please, let me know where you're tuning in from today, and please make sure to put down any questions, because I'm going to be looking at questions and chat, comment. Feel free to say whatever you'd like. So I'm just going to take a peek down. It's so nice to see everybody. How are you? How's everyone doing? I'm just curious how life's going for you. I have to say that sometimes I tend to like to know what's going on I read the New York Times every day. I look at all the different news. I have read the New York Times every day since for over 20 years. So even though, I've read everything with discernment, I do keep in touch with what's happening on the planet, because it's part of this work. It's part of what we're alchemizing. And so, but I have to say that right now, sometimes watching things can get really can affect your auric field and your emotional body. And so it's really about balancing, knowing the truth. There's also this war between the political right and left that's real extreme. There's a lot of extremism, and there's a lot of conflict and not being able to communicate. And so when we're too much in that frequency, it can it's taking its toll on people. Aries has a very hidden esoteric connection to the heart. So even though Aries is war, well, for one, it's the polar opposite. It's on the axis of Libra. It's on the Libra Aries axis. And so Libra is ruled by Venus. And so Aries is the opposite of Venus, That's why it's Venus detriment, because Venus rules the opposite side, so it's her face off with her opposite. But there's certain energies that in Aries that unlock the heart, and unite reason with love, divine love. And so that is what we are going to be looking at, because especially Venus is going to, in a couple degrees, she's going to meet up with Vesta, the priestess of alchemy and the holy fire, and she's going to be stoking up some alchemy for the planet. So I will just go through. Okay. Thank you for being here, everyone. It's so nice to see you. Um, okay. Aloha. Aloha. And let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions. Ah, it's beautiful shining in Vancouver. I have a feeling like everyone's out today. Because it's so sunny here, and for the first time I felt kind of the energy of going out. So yeah, it's the 1 year anniversary of this. So let's just take a look at what's coming. All right. All right, so Venus is in Aries. She's in a fire sign. Venus is actually very connected to water, even though in the zodiac she governs Earth, Taurus, and air. Aries is a cardinal sign. It's a send off sign. It's a sign with a lot of. It's like the cardinal signs are the signs where the equinoxes and the solstices fall, and so they're signs of beginnings and thrusting forward. And so when she's in Aries, it's kind of a very dynamic, maybe even explosive energy. So Venus will conjunct Vesta first. Vesta will be at 10 degrees and of Aries. So Vesta is priestess energy. And so when Venus comes together, Venus is carrying the heart, and she also is carrying the emotional body, and she's also connected to the imagination. And so when she touches Vesta, Vesta is like no joke priestess energy of the fire. And so it's almost like Vesta is initiating her into the energy of Aries by dipping her in that divine feminine fire first. It's her first conjunction, and it's really beautiful, but also just right there 2 degrees later is Jupiter. So just even looking at Venus, Vesta, the sacred priestess, and Jupiter, Jupiter is connected to deep love and spirituality. Jupiter is the Lord of Lords. It expands and gives birth and just keeps it's regenerative, and so it expands everything it touches. So Venus is already going through a regeneration being in here, and so Jupiter along with Vesta are giving the powers of regeneration. I forgot to say that Lilith is also trining all of this in Leo, which is good. So next after Jupiter is Chiron. Chiron represents our wounds. Chiron being in Aries is representing the wounds around power. I jotted down some things that came in about power. I wrote down at this energy, take back your power. Release any false memories or memories that need to be reworked. Put up your boundaries. Reorganize information if there's any misinformation or information that is taking your energies in the wrong, you're in using your forces. Take a close look at that and let them go. You want to, as Aries, as the warrior, you want to free up yourself. You don't want to be weighted down. So this is Venus and Aries is a time to like get rid of stuff that you don't need. Get light. Doesn't mean you can dismiss it or deny it, but it's time to start letting things go. And it's before spring equinox, so it's in the northern hemisphere, spring cleaning. All right, redirect the power of your mind and your thoughts. This is Aries. Aries, remember, is the sun in the mind. So it can represent the ego when it falls, but it's also our link to super consciousness. It carries both. Everything has duality in this world. Everything has both the shadow, the light, the underbelly, and the upside. So Aries also, in a really spiritual way, represents it's the first sign in the zodiac. So with Venus being there, it's I am. Venus, this is I'm going to bring in some wisdom, touches down in Aries to the earth for the very first time. So when Venus is coming to the planet, when her signature and her frequency and her codes are coming in, she touches down in Aries. It's the first place where she touches the earth and where she starts to give her energy over to matter. All right. Um, Take your fire out into nature in a playful way, meaning like when Venus is in Aries, she's going to be in Taurus right after this, but work out in nature. Venus carries the fire in nature, and that's why she rules Taurus. This is all divine feminine astrology that I'm drawing from. Venus is fire in nature, but right now she's in for the fire of Aries before she enters her own sign Taurus. So when you work out, that's why the sun today is so pretty on a Friday, which is the day of Venus. Work outside and connect to the fire in nature. Every single atom, every sex has fire in it in this world of matter that's connected to Venus. So we want to honor nature, even as this masculine energy. We're changing everything is changing. Everything is changing from the currency, from money to nature. We are truly to technology. Everything is changing so fast and it's going to change. We can't go backwards. It's going to keep coming. The changes are going to keep coming. I'm jumping around, but I was shown that technology is going to keep evolving. Not everything that is seen as negative and kind of conspiratorial is bad because the momentum of human achievement and genius and invention, it just comes. Once it touches in, we can't go back unless we destroy ourselves, which we're looking at the situation that in Ukraine, there's a lot happening there, a lot. That's very real. We have to, as human beings, just contemplate what that means and how ridiculous that would be to take it to that level, how the patriarchy plays everything. So this is our time for Venus to get in the patriarchy and say, you know what? It's time for me to be heard. And when we first started the Goddess Report, we did a call called Message from the Goddess, Voice of the Goddess, and that's what this is about. Those were some of the first Goddess Reports that we did. So, okay. Now Venus is going to conjunct Chiron, but Chiron, Vesta, and Jupiter, they're all really together. Chiron is the power to heal, and Chiron right now collectively being in Aries. I was born with Chiron in Aries and Venus in Aries. It's so funny. This is kind of like the configuration right now. I know it well. It's in my original chart. So I know this wound. It's time for the collective to claim I am. It's time for us to claim our voice, our power, our warrior and warrioress energy. That doesn't mean fighting. That means just connecting to our spirit because Aries is our spirit. It's the fire of consciousness. It really is the Christ force. Looking at it on, through the divine feminine wisdom, we think of it Aries, that fire of the human soul, as the Christ for the Christ. It's the Christ coming into matter, and Chiron has a connection with the Christ energy. So this is a chance for Venus, the heart, the emotions, to heal with Chiron in Aries. And so that is with Vesta, the priestess of the sacred fire, and with Juno, the expander of divine love in the heart and spiritual wealth and abundance. This is healing. It's to heal, but it's to heal through power and through reason. So Venus in her normal self is just like romance and in the creative imagination and generating ideas, but she's a little more practical and down to earth in Aries. It's like you need to bring a little reason in with that, and make it practical. Use it. but we need to be able to access. So let's take I am in the seven directions just for a moment. I'm just shown to do that to activate Venus right now. So I was also shown to do Venus in the seven directions. We'll do that at the end. So I am, we're stopping to do this right now because I am is everything we just talked about. It's the Christ force, it's Aries, it's the light of the goddess. With Venus, it's the solar feminine Christ force. And so it's the light of our heart. I'm just thinking of we have some really beautiful mantras we use in Light Body Woman. So let's just do this in the seven directions. I want you to see the sun in your heart and think your power, think your spirit. And we'll just see the sun moving in to activate our electric magnetic field with the power of seven. And so just repeating after me, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And then take a deep breath in. As you breathe in, suspend it for a moment, but then just imagine your inner fire, your inner authority, your sovereignty. It's sovereignty that we're talking about, but spiritual sovereignty, divine sovereignty. And then exhaling all your breath out. I know I am. I am, I am, I know I am. I know I came on kind of fast, talking really fast, but there's a few other things I really want to say in just a moment. So next is so we talked about the healing. So all of this is going to kind of be trining Lilith in Leo. We work with Lilith, and she has a close relationship in on the Divine Feminine Astrology platform with Magdalene. And so really powerful connection with the divine feminine and Venus being in Aries, healing the divine feminine, bringing the power of the heart to patriarchy, to the sons of the world, to all of us really, but to these powers that have so much wealth and so much control. We say sometimes oligarchies or multinational corporations or, old established entities that carry almost all of the wealth and that are directing right now the direction with technology. And the, I'm sure we can't really fight that in the way we think. Kind of it's a different kind of um it's not transmutation, it's a different kind of evolution, it's a different kind of awakening and activating. We're doing it the feminine way, but we're giving the feminine some power. We don't need permission to do that. And so whenever you feel down or like the burden of the world, you have to remember your own authority to take it back. To take it back. Venus and Aries is taking it back. Remember your fire. You have fire too. And that fire, Vesta, the priestess, is like, you don't have to necessarily go out into the world. You can, you'll be guided to. But your rituals and what you do and what you create, Vesta's like the Vestal virgins, and also that deep, deep creative fire. It's that divine feminine creative fire. What you create and your ability to join that with reason projection and vision will bring it onto the planet. That is so big. It is so big, and that's what this is about. So next we have, it's also the third chakra. Think Mars. Okay, so Mars rules Aries, so that's Venus and Mars. Mars governs our third chakra. And so think also your solar plexus, and think like we talked about extending key last time, your ability to take action for yourself and for your loved ones, and work with the changes that are coming, because they're going to come. Not everything that is said to be really, really bad is really, really bad. This is something I've been wanting to say for a while, and we'll talk more about it in the next couple weeks. We all live here as individuals on this planet. Most of us don't think about where our food will come from, where our electricity comes from, where our internet comes from. We don't we are born, especially in the Western world, which is very privileged, that we just all we have to do is show up in the morning. And sometimes most of the time we have to do some work, but we don't have to go out and grow the food. We can use the internet without understanding how it works. We can get in our car and drive it without understanding how it works. We assume that we turn on the lights and the electricity will come. So the average person we don't spend our time thinking about where does this stuff come from and how does it serve the whole global population. People who are in business in these areas, the patriarchy, think about that. Somebody has to think about it. So to just totally put it all down and say, oh, I just want to go live off the land, which a lot of people are saying. And there's a part of that that is very valuable, and there may come a time when we have periods of that. But we also have to understand that some visionaries are trying to figure out what we are going to do as all this new technology comes in, and the population is growing. Of course, some places, some people say it's not, but we're multiplying. The numbers on Earth are multiplying exponentially, without a doubt. So it's not just about the resources. I used to not understand it as well as I do now. It's also about how we get resources, supply chains. We saw that with COVID, that it doesn't just because we have enough food or we have enough energy, we have to get it to people. And so the new systems that are coming in, those who are warriors of the light, meaning warriors of higher consciousness and the noble masculine, are thinking in terms of how this will work, how we will how we're going to switch over, because everything is switching over. And so we can't automatically assume. We have to listen and really understand what's being done. Some of it is sinister, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. And we have talked about that a lot, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more as we go. But we have to be, what I wrote down a really great quote, and I want to see if I can find it. It was so good. It was about that. It was about, we have to be the lights. I'm sure I'll run into it. We have to be the light. We have to light the candles. We light the candles. That's what Aries is. So regardless of what's happening, we light the candles, and we bring this kind of light in, and then it feeds into the global consciousness. Is all connected, the matrix. And so when a lot of people are thinking this way, it feeds into the mind, because we all are receiving from each other's thoughts. And so when enough people are when the people who are powerful with the divine feminine are able to amplify that signal and that frequency and beam it out, it's like those experiments where a few people do it and then all of a sudden everyone's doing it. That's how we're all connected now. So I hope that makes sense, but that's how we do it. So we should never get too. Now, what's happening right now with Russia and Ukraine is something we need to really look at, and NATO, and what's being fed. That's very big. We do have to use our reason to look at that, but this is the kind of energy we want to amplify into the field. Okay, so coming up to Juno. Juno is the wife of Jupiter, and she represents justice for women and justice for the feminine, and she's right conjunct Eris, which is like the complete disruptor goddess who disrupts. And so you have Juno, justice for the feminine. She also, Juno, in the in mythology, I believe Jupiter cheated on her. She was his wife and she was cheated on. And so she carries that wound and she's healing the archetype of love relationships and bringing in a lot of energy around it. So Juno conjunct Eris, but also Venus will be conjunct both of those. This is so much feminine energy because Venus, who's already the heart, will be conjunct Juno, who heals the feminine, heals love relationships, and Eris, who says what needs to be said. She's like a Uranus kind of, or she's like kind of like Mars and Pluto and Uranus all together. The goddess Eris, Venus will be conjunct those at, let's see what degrees, I wrote that down. Eris will be at 24 Aries, and Juno, I don't know if I wrote it down, but Juno is right there as well. They will all be conjunct, and that is on March 16th. That happens March 16th. It's March 12 that she conjuncts Chiron, I believe. Okay, I may have those dates wrong, but I'll take another look in just a moment. After Venus conjuncts, so the heart is going to be having its say with all this Aries energy. That's a big deal. That's a voice for the divine feminine. All of this is coming in this year so big. So then Venus will, after that, after she does all this alchemy in Aries. So just a reminder, the North Node is moving into Aries in July. The war, the sign of war. So Venus is getting herself together, getting baptized in Aries energy, initiated into Aries energy, and she's going to be ready for it. So that when this happens, this, year and a half, 2-year transit in Aries of the North Node, the dragon's head, our destiny, Venus will be ready to go. She's going to be ready. She's going to be all hands on deck with Venus. So next she enters her own sign, Taurus. Oh, that's on March 16th. She enters Taurus. So Venus at home in her own sign. And then she will conjunct the North Node. Let's just take a moment. After she has done all this alchemy, we hit in the Divine Feminine podcast, we had a year where we did the alchemy of the goddess. We did all Venus. Venus is always present because she's our centerpiece, but we talked a lot about the alchemy of the goddess. Venus going through Aries is a deep alchemy. And so now when she comes into Taurus, she's at home. She's not in her detriment. She's shining like the star and the empress and the mother of the sign. Like she is at home. She's the divine mother in the sign of Earth. She's the Earth goddess holding the sacred fire of the planet. So now she's going to conjunct the dragon's head, the North Node. And so that means she's going to fire up our collective true north, our polar star within, and she's going to talk to that point, that collective point of destiny, and download everything she just received from conjoining with Vesta, Jupiter, Chiron, healing that wound of lack of power, lack of sovereignty with human souls. Nobody's going to ever give us our sovereignty, by the way. We have to find it ourselves. We find it ourselves. Now, on the planet, the injustices of and the unfairnesses, we need to reach out and help people so that if souls, well, I shouldn't say that because sometimes when we're really, really pressed and we have zero, we pop like a flower. And so, but we also need to make conditions better for people to find their spiritual sovereignty. So Venus will be talking to the North Node about the wound, about Aries, about war, about expanding the heart, about healing the collective wound, about the what needs to shift in love relationships, about what needs to be spoken truthfully, about what's really happening with patriarchal energies, the patriarchal inversion, a famous one we did a couple years ago. After that, she comes to, so that's on the 20th, March 20th. So this is all happening during March, every single thing we're talking about. Then by the 30th, the very last day of March, Venus will be conjunct Uranus and Taurus. So Uranus and Taurus is the massive archetypal influence and imprint on our planet right now. That is why we're seeing the change in the financial system, technology expanding and exploding faster than we can. I mean, it's like exponentially. We can hardly keep up with how fast the innovation is happening, and the all of the things that go along with it. That's some of the sinister and shadow sides that we're going to have to figure out how to operate, because it looks like it's not possible to shut it all down, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So Venus and Uranus, we can expect, conjunct Uranus, we can expect a divine revelation, because Uranus is where we talk about in divine feminine astrology, the galactic core codes. Uranus pours the galactic core codes in, and it will be talking to the heart, talking to the emotional body, talking to the power of the newly alchemized Venus. And we will be experiencing the effects of that rebirth and regeneration, preparing us for, let's see what's coming. That North Node will be shifting. And Venus also was just in Pisces, and she was in Pisces at the Pisces new moon. If you didn't see the last video, it's really beautiful. We've been talking here a lot about the subconscious realms and the mother deep, and the layers of the subconscious mind that are healing. So before Venus does Aries, she's just coming out of Pisces, which is really beautiful. And she was activated at the new moon in Pisces. We called it the mother deep, reclaiming the divine feminine dimension. That's our last video. All of the past 6 videos have had a theme coming in, starting with the winter solstice. And so if you're interested in what's happening, you can just tune into any one of those. You're going to get a lot. So that's that. All of this is bringing love, healing, Venus activation. Okay, before the North Node comes into Aries. All right, so this is the 1-year anniversary. Okay, this is some of the spiritual stuff that was written down. We must become family right now. All of us must come together. I put down all colors, all genders, all walks of life. We need to heal. Some of the stuff that's happening in the planet, the extreme this or the extreme that, is needs healing. It's out of whack. So try not to get too pulled into the extremes. What happens with the right and the left politically, the left goes really the left is pushing back or having a backlash against the right. So it's going way, 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 way. And some of that is just woundedness. And then the right goes, oh yeah, I'm gonna own you. I'm gonna one up you. So then the right pushes way, 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 way right. And now we're living in that field of extremism. Don't go to the extremes unless you need to. Unless you need to dip in. The heart is here. The heart is the center point. So protect your space, protect your auric field by not being. Because the thing is, and this is what you see on social media, especially Twitter, if you see one thing that's super triggering, or you meaning like what's happening and you know it's just absolutely ridiculous and wrong, it can pull you in so deep that you think that's what's happening in the whole world. Not everything is happening. It's what we tune into. So some of the things do need to be checked, and they will be, but be careful about only tuning into like the things that are really off track, because then you can start to think. We talked about that kind of paranoia or suspicion where you think, oh my God, it's happening everywhere to everything. A little bit of that is true, but we as sovereign artists and creators and divine feminine warriors and warrioresses need to understand how to work our energy and not be taken down by that. Otherwise, we're useless. And trust me, it can happen very quickly. Even when you know better, if you get too much in that field, you'll take a hit. And right now it's the heart. The heart is under tremendous pressure, and there's all kinds of things. There are some real things that will be understood in the coming months. We're going through a big, big shift right now. So I'm going to just see if there's anything else that really needs to be said. And then I'll look down and see if anyone wants to say anything. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Venus, oh, I didn't read this. Oh, whoa, okay. I think this is worth reading for sure. Okay, I'll read what I wrote. I can't even remember what it was. Okay, so Venus in Aries is aligning with I am, bringing emotions into alignment with reason of the mind that is linked to God's mind or goddess mind. But first, she must transmute the wound of the lower mind and ego. That's the manifestation of patriarchy. That's what the dimension that patriarchy operates out of. As Venus claims this power, she activates her holy fire of divine love. Okay, Venus moving through Aries at this time on this 1 year anniversary of the war in Ukraine is huge. It's a huge hint from the universe. When we had that Pluto return for the US, we talked about it being a reckoning energy, and it is. It's a karmic reckoning kind of energy that, as I see, is applies to sort of the military part of um, the collective, and how that's used. Aries is a sign of the emperor. Venus, as the ruler of Taurus, is the female matriarch, the empress. She is not at home in this sign, Aries. She is highly uncomfortable there and can take on a warrior like or even a war like frequency. So we have to be careful to not let this is huge, not let our hearts be sabotaged by the underbelly of Aries energy and not give all our heart energy to not get caught up in that momentum of this is good, this is good. Like when we get groupthink and the masses start cheering on something that's not good, we have to be careful of that. We have to own our heart energy. Venus is blessing Aries with her presence and calling forth the warrioress of the heart to activate the higher sun of the emperor's mind, the light of reason, the higher mind of the philosophers and to ignite the heart. If we continue down the path of war and weapons and forego this opportunity for reasoning and peace talks, we choose karma. We create karmic ties. To pretend we hold the moral high ground. Wow, I don't remember writing this. To pretend we hold the moral high ground and the moral superiority can be deceptive and highly deceptive and can be an outright lie. We have an opportunity to choose better, to choose higher, and to choose better this time before enters into its and before the WW enters Aries. Oh, the North Node. I'm sorry, that's an NN. Before the North Node enters Aries. So we need to be prepared for that because when the North Node enters Aries, that Aries energy is on. It's activated for both the lower and the higher. Our past shows us that rarely do we take the real moral high ground. We pretend, we emote, we share photo ops and curated images filled with all kinds of deceptions. War now is the time for truth. Humanity must hear this call. All the movements point to the 11th hour arrogance, pride, greed. These are shadows of Aries. Arrogance, pride, greed must give way to the goddess of the sacred flame, Vesta, the priestess, Venus, the goddess of the heart, Jupiter, spirituality, Janus, love relationships and the feminine, and justice for women, and Eris, the ability to speak truth to power. Before Venus hits the North Node. So once Venus hits the North Node, whatever energy we're in, she's going to bring it there. And that's happening in March. Uranus and Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so that's it. That was written a few days ago. And I also wrote down we have to learn the art of friendship, the art of relationships, the art of reaching out. There are a lot of conspiracies, and when I see them, it breaks my heart because there are some things that are real, but everything gets so mixed together, and we can be misled. We have to follow our heart, and we have to follow. If the Christ flame isn't lit, then we're off track. So through that flame, we have the higher vision of Aries. And even if we make a mistake, we can pull it back in. As long as our intention is brotherhood and sisterhood, that's the age of Aquarius. Brotherhood, sisterhood, global family, um, making the right choices, calling it all. It's always safe to call it for love. And let's just tune in and see if there's anything else. Well, the sovereignty of Venus is to claim your spirituality. If you haven't activated it yet, do it. A lot of times, this energy can eat up the frequency of the world eats up at the field and strips us of our true spiritual energy. A lot of times, we think, "Oh, well, I'm spiritual. I know about this or that, or this is my work." No, it has to be in your field. You have to be in that energy. We've talked about that every video since we started the thing. It has to be turned on, not later, now. So when we're living from love, we just have more common sense. And so some of the big things, there's some big things, and there's been some big mistakes, some of them intentional, some of them not. So that's something I'm not going to get into right now. But if you're connected to your spirituality, you're always going to be okay. I want to say something. Oh, I wrote down some things. Um, I saw the Elvis film. I talked about that way back, but I really enjoyed that film. That's a lot about this Piscean energy that's active this year. I wanted to say that I recommend that film. It's really good. It's the journey of the human soul, being great, but then being sabotaged by the energies of this world and how it works. I recommend that film. And the guy, he's won a lot of awards. Austin, got his last name. He's amazing, really great. I also just saw a film with Colin Farrell that's nominated for um, an Academy Award, and I'm only halfway through. It was pretty depressing, so I couldn't watch it all. It takes place in Ireland. For all the I see some people here from Ireland, so it takes place on a small island off the coast of Ireland. I'm going to finish with the story because it's really powerful. So it's a story about this. There's barely any people on this island, and it's Irish. It's so Irish, and it's like it reminds me of some Irish theater I did. It's about this man whose best friend, another man, does not want to be friends with him any longer. And it's excruciatingly painful to this man, but it takes a while to understand. And Colin Farrell plays it so well. But it's the human heart. It's what we are going through collectively right now. So he asks him, like, what happened? They were best friends. They live on this island where there's one pub, a tiny little town where there's barely any people. Everyone knows everyone's business. So everyone knows that he's been dumped by his one friend. The reason his friend gives him, he's a fiddle player, and there's not a lot going on this island. There's really nothing except the pub and the occasional couple musicians that play a little fiddle. He has this idea. He wants to compose big music. And so I'm just going to take you up to where I'm at a little bit. He's like, I need to be, this is just, I don't have time for you. I don't like you anymore. I'm doing big things. I'm composing music. I almost went into the accent, but I don't think I can quite do it right now. It's so good. And so he really does want to compose this music, and but it shows how he's willing to cut off friendship. And Colin Farrell says, like, but I'm real, but I'm a person. And he's like, nope, this music is, he said, this will die, but this will last forever. So he wants to make great art. And, he really, really means that too. But then so different things happen, and they end up talking, and a lot of hard things come to this man who's lost his friend. And one day the friend that he lost has to stop and help him because he's been beat up so bad, and he just drops him off though. So he tries to talk to him again, but he tells him, if you talk to me, I will cut off my fingers. Every time you come to me, I will cut off a finger. And he says, that's crazy. What do you mean? You hate me that much that if I talk to you, the guy who doesn't want to talk to him says, I'll cut off. But you're a fiddle player. You won't be able to play the fiddle? And he says, I will do it. And so this is so deep. So eventually, this is the part where I'm at right now. He talks to him just a little bit. I think they come together and he doesn't really overdo it, but the next day he hears something thrown at his door and he opens its door and it's a finger from the guy. I know that's awful. And this is where I'm at right now. But this is what I receive from it right now that I want to say because I was like, this is humanity right now. So this man is so isolated and desperate for friendship, and his only friend pushes him away because he wants to do something great and that's eternal and infinite. We've been talking about that registers on the higher octave, and yet he's willing to sacrifice love with another human being and how painful it is, but he's actually cutting off the very parts of his body that he needs to do what he claims he's going to do. It makes no sense. It's a complete contradiction. By isolating himself and by saying, I can't talk to you, now he's threatening, he's sabotaging himself just to prove his point, which means he won't be able to do what he came to do. Okay, this is humanity right now. Sometimes with everything going on in the world, we're so judgmental of it, but what we end up doing is cutting off the very things we need for our own blossoming and our own growth and our own creativity. And so that in the age of Aquarius is about friendship. It's about love. And we're not going to be best friends with everybody. And there will always be times when, certain things or certain frequencies or people hold certain things. We're like, no, I have to have a boundary. Remember, it even said at the beginning, have boundaries, know your boundaries. But those are specific situations. For love and friendship, we have to remember what love and friendship are. Because, first of all, a lot of times we're delusional about it. And a lot of times we can just have the right boundary and we don't have to do that. That's extremism, also. So that's what we're seeing. I mean, there's a lot of extremism. That's also extreme, and, I don't know how the movie ends, maybe some of you do. It was so depressing, I had to turn it off. I was doing yoga with the movie going, and I was like, "This is too heavy," because he plays the deep I think Colin Farrell channels the pain of the whole human race right now. The loneliness, isolation, lack of real friendship in person that a lot of people are experiencing with the technology and just needing to have real friends because it all seems so crazy. Now, I don't know how the second half of the movie will go. I'm going to take a peek down. Wow, Sedna playing a big part in the sky soon. And where is Sedna? I don't know. I'm sure I missed a lot of other things. I just looked at there was so much to talk about. It was so, um, that I thought was really helpful. So, oh, where are all of you? Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah. Let's see if there was anything else. It was deep. Colin Farrell really made it come. I mean, I think he's carried a lot of that pain. We've all carried that kind of pain. Think of the pain of rejection. That's Juno. That's the Juno energy of love, because that friendship is like a love relationship. It's like that's a deep hurt. And it's also probably not necessary, but our perception, Aries is also perception. It's our vision. How we perceive will determine our emotional energy. It will determine the things we do and say. And so clear perception requires to be linked to our own internal flame. Without it, we make it through sometimes, but we're lost in the labyrinth. And it's once we know how to connect, it's so easy, and then we inspire it in other people. Our presence lights other people's candles and helps them to remember. It helps them to return to love. All right. Libra is opposite Aries. The South Node will be entering Libra, and Libra is friendship and relationships. It's we. Aries is me. Libra is we. When the North Node comes into Aries, the South Node, our karmic lessons will be in we. This is all really big. It's big. We're in big times right now. Oh, Kath, so good you could make it. Sophia, Danielle, Ben, Jay, good to see you. Wayne, nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Kathia, Jennifer. Oh gosh, I wish I could say your name. I wish you could spell it out. Sananya. Sananya. I'll say Sananya, but I'm sure that's wrong. I love I love that language too. Okay. Oh, hello from the UK. It's cold and overcast here today in UK. Lisa, Janelle, just seeing Alana. Nice to see you. Glad you could make it because I know it's later for you in LA. Queen Star Sophia, nice. Estrella, Sue, um, Dana. Oh my God, I'm glad I'm going through this. Good to see you. It's been a little while, but I remember you said 3 is a good time for you. And Shay and Trish and Wayne and okay, I'm sorry. I'm having fun saying everyone's names. Charlotte, Brienne, Robin, Sonia. Okay, I hope I didn't miss anyone. Sophia, glad you could make it. Are you in the bath again? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, there's a lot here. This is for the month of March, but it's the alchemy for 2023. So we just talked about all this water energy with all the past videos. Now we're in fire. Remember, water and fire are the sacred lovers that work with each other. So she went water into fire, and then she'll be back in earth. And so let's do Venus in the 7 directions. If you think of a question, you can write it, and I'll peek down before I tune out. Okay, so let's do Venus in the 7 directions. I want you to see Venus as the solar feminine dipped in the light of the heart, the divine feminine Christ force, and emanating into the 7 directions. Venus before me, seeing her in her glory, in her light, her holy fire. Venus behind me. Venus at my left. Venus at my right. Venus above me. Venus below me. Venus unto me. Taking a deep breath in. As you breathe it in, just see your heart, your inner star shining, regenerated, sovereign, ready to shine, ready to perceive, ready to serve the highest vision for humanity, and exhaling it all out. I am, I know I am, I am, I am, I know. The I am is the I am goddess meditation. It really is Venus, and Venus has a connection to 7. So you can say that for Venus. We've been doing it with Christ Sophia as well. So good to see everybody. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit the notification bell. Next week, I think I'm going to come on a little earlier. I would actually love to hear. I looked back and I used to do these videos at noon, which is a lot earlier, but there was a lot of people in the chat, I noticed. So maybe we will come on earlier, but I'll see if I hear from you. Noon, 1, 2, 3. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know when we do come on. It will give you a little notification. And that being said, huge goddess blessings, huge goddess blessings. Someone I know always says endless goddess blessings to all beings, especially the goddess blessings of Venus at this time. And I will see you next week. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who came live today.